Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the workshop. This is part 4 of the lathe copy attachment project, in which I form the dovetails for the base. If I have time at the end, I'll do a bit of drilling and mounting holes and what have you, but we'll have to see how time gets on, and I don't want to make it too long a video. Over to the mill then, and let's start cutting some metal. Right, just a brief recap then. The base is going to turn out looking something like this, but obviously with a dovetail here and not the square sides that I used for the test piece. And just to recap slightly, the slider obviously will go on the top here, which means that I've got to cut out dovetails here and here, to the dimensions on the drawing or thereabouts, test fit, and then with the jib or gib if you prefer fitted, see how well it slides. Obviously the dovetail will come along here and along here. First of all, I'll use the roughing mill, as I did before, to cut down and get rid of the majority of this material here. Now that dimension is going to be from the edge to the corner of the dovetail. Let me get this the right way around. It is going to be 12 millimeters there, and this one will be, am I looking at the right one? No, 13.49. Well, obviously I won't go quite up to that dimension, at least not to start with, until I've done a few measurements as per the drawing here. But that's for later. In the meantime, I'll load up the roughing mill in the collet and make a start on chewing away some metal. You may or may not have noticed that I forgot to mention about the DRO, which I've done off camera. I've measured the Y either side, used the DRO half Y facility, and set the 0 to the middle. So I'm taking my measurements from the centre of the workpiece and not the outside, because it's very slightly less than the 60mm because of the grinding operation that I did to square it up. But there we are. I've set the DRO then as that. I've touched off the Z axis on the top, and I'm about to take a 3.3-ish mil cut along, and that'll be the start. It's got to go down 6.9 mil, this dovetail, so I'll take it down to about 6.8 for the depth required, and I think the dovetail cutter will probably take the final smidgen off. So if you're ready, here we go. I think I'm probably a little bit slow. on that, so we'll up the rate a bit and try again. I think you can probably see. The camera is actually mounted on the table. Try and get a better view, but I think I'll remount it on the tripod again, otherwise it's going to be awful to watch. I'll try a different setup and see how much better that is or not. Here we go then. As promised, another cut, but this time full depth, and we'll see how this gets on. You may be able to tell I've speeded up the fill a bit. Chips are certainly coming off hot, as I just found out. There we go, I'll have a bit of a measure up and see how we're getting on. I've also had a bit of a hoover up so I can see the chips for the trees, as it were. I'm now going to measure how the actual depth I've cut in here with the depth micrometer. And it is, let's get round here, see if I can bring it up to the screen and get it into focus. Come on, get it into focus. It is 7.9. Don't think you can see that. Maybe you can. 7.9 mil. Right, a bit more maths and see how much further we got to go. Okay, so confession time. I'm realising now that I should have machined the gib strip before I started with this piece. However, I'm going to machine it so that it's oversized. Then I'm going to do the gib strip, and then I'm going to adjust the dovetails accordingly. Annoying, but these things happen, I suppose. Worse things happen at sea. Right, so I'll set up the mill at the other end and I'll cut out a chunk here. As you can see, I've finished the dovetail cutting on the reverse side as well. I'm now about to test the measurements over these two silver steel pins and see how we get on getting it parallel and what have you. I've obviously gone over and I've stoned the edges to get rid of all the burrs and what have you, so I'm hoping that, well, I'm fingers crossed it's going to be fairly accurate. I ought to just mention that I'm zoomed in a little bit because yesterday I went out and bought a second-hand Sony Handycam with a zoom function. See, I'm hoping that this is going to provide some better video. Anyway, back at the measuring system, we'll just put that across there. That's shifted slightly. And that's come up with, can you read that? Yeah, 47.92. Slide those pins up the other end. Try not to knock the tripod. I'm probably getting in the way. Yes, I am a bit. There we are. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to get in the way again. You're not going to believe this. Look at that. 47.9 and well, 91, I guess. I'm pretty pleased with that. That's come out quite well. Right, next up then is drilling the fixing holes. I've got to drill one through here, cut a scallop out to clear the head, and two up this end, and again I've cut a scallop out there to clear the head. I'm using small round head, I forgot what they call them, mushroom head screws, because they've got a shallower head on, but I'll do that off camera. Drilling's not much fun, and I'll bring you back when that's finished. What I forgot to mention was that I've cut a chunk out of the piece of brass which I'm going to use for the jib strip, and if I slide the already machined slide on to the base, so obviously we've got a gap here which will be filled by the gib, and that slides in there. A little bit of wiggle room naturally, and up the other end the same. So that's that bit done, and I'm off to drill some mounting holes. On the mill I've now drilled the mounting holes, cut the recesses for the button head socket screws, and I've also milled out a little recess in the top to cut the drag down. Just got a little bit of deburring to do on here and on the underside of the holes, but apart from that, that's otherwise complete. I think the next job will be to mill the gib strip and I'll go to the bench and show you the setup I'm going to use for that. This then is the description of how I intend to mill the gib strip. I'm going to start off with the basic slider. I've cut the gib strip material roughly to length. It's a little oversized. That goes in there as it would sit, but obviously not against the dovetail. This is a piece of 6mm silver steel which goes in there. Next to that goes a 17mm by 8mm parallel, and then against that, just to save it, will be another piece of old brass. These are the gib strip, can't get them in the shot, gib strip adjusting screws. But I think I'll use just ordinary socket head screws to go into there. They will bear up against the this vertical piece of brass and trap the gib strip itself tightly against the dovetail. I then come along with a milling cutter and cut the flat that way. Disassemble this arrangement. Take that out, insert a piece of 3mm silver steel, flip this over so that the angled cut is now resting on there and against the dovetail. This is where you really need 4 pairs of hands. Ah, it's stuck in there. Bear with me. I feel like Boris Johnson here. That will then go in there with the second side uppermost, and I should have said I score a line along the top once it's been settled down, so I know how deep to go with the second cut. This then clamps it at the correct angle, and come along with an end mill and take the opposite edge off until we get down to the scribed line. Easier done than said, really. So I'll dig out some screws for this and we'll get going. And it's back to the mill again. Off camera, I've done the setup as I've just described, and if I can get that in focus, we see well, the slide itself, of course, the embryo gib strip, 6mm silver steel, 17mm parallel, and another piece of gib strip material just to protect the parallel, clamped with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws. That then goes in the vise on a couple of parallels, tightened up, and giving it a bit of a whack. Those parallels are nice and tight. It's now seated on the vise. Just give that a final nip up, and we're all ready to start milling. Except we're not, because I haven't put a milling cutter in the chuck. Silly boy. Right, so I'll go and do that, and then we'll give it a bit of a whiz. I've got a 3-flute 8mm diameter cutter in the collet chuck. I'm just about to drop it down so that we get a touch off on the corner. Unlock the Z-axis. Gently down. This first cut. Oh shit. That's all that. This will be just a minimal cut on this face. Let's see how they're going to take it down. 1mm should get us close to where we want to be. Speed it up a little bit, and off we go. Coming on okay. Yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll give it a clean down so that I don't get any brass rubbings in there. Undo these screws, take it all apart, sweep it out, flip it over and see how we get on. As it happens, I had to take another 1/2 mil off to get it to the right profile. There we go. So we've got a... that comes up very well on there actually. Let's try and hold it against my coat. We've now got an angle on the end, so we flip it over the right way around, slide it back into the fixture, all along, make sure it's seated. Tighten a couple of these screws. I've got a couple only in 3, obviously. Oh dear. Will be much looser than all the others. And I'll get my scriber and scribe a line. And that is where, oops, scratch that. That's where we need to mill down to on the next pass. Also, I do it now, I'm in danger of messing this surface. Undo these again, and I think I'll try and find a piece of 2mm silver steel rather than the 3 I had in the earlier demonstration. I think that might be beneficial. See if I can get the blasted screws over. Not really working backwards and arms about face. I think I've got a bit of rheumatism coming, which doesn't help. There we go. Everything comes to those who wait. Right, I'll go a bit of silver steel hunting, I think. See you in a minute. Right, 2mm silver steel hunt successful. And here we go. What happens is we lift this up. With some difficulty. There we go. Slide that along the bottom. So that now is shifted up that way. 2mm. Pull these screws up again. Make sure they're nice and snug. Last thing we want is for it to shift. I don't think you can see it, but the score mark is now about 2, yeah, I should, well, yeah, obviously 2mm higher than the slide itself, so yeah, I can cut it this way, can't I? Raise it a little, and we'll take a smidge off to start with, I think. Ready? Here we go. The bits of brass flying off everywhere. Coming down quite nicely. I'll do another run the other way for another 1mm, and we'll see how that looks up against the scribe mark. The scribe mark of which I obviously did at an angle, so it's going to be slightly below the surface. So with any luck, all the errors are going in our favour. I'm actually good. Sorry, I keep knocking the tripod. I'm going to go down in 1/2 mil steps, or at least to start with. Rather than go too far in one go. Another half mil after this and that will be fine. I brought it back to this end on the fast traverse simply because it throws the chips all that way away from me, and this will be the last one. Down another half. I've stopped because I just want to do a sanity check on that. And yeah, that's right, spot on that line. Done. I'll take it all apart, offer it up, and I'll see what it looks like. The gib strip is in its crudely finished state. I haven't taken any of the rough edges off, but slid it in there backed off all the screws so that there's nothing protruding, and it's actually quite a nice fit in there. There's just a smidgen of play, you can possibly hear it. Which will be taken up by the jib adjusting screws. What I have to do now is to think of a way of putting the dimples in the gib strip. With hindsight, I should have made the gib strip first, assembled it, and then put the holes in. But you know, catch-22, you need the holes to be threaded in order to clamp it, so 6 1/2 dozen the other. Not quite sure how I'm going to do that, so I'm going to go and have a cup of tea, have a think, and come back. It's quite late now, so probably tomorrow. That's all for now. Well, I've decided to finish this video at this point. I'll come back in the next one, and hopefully by then I'll have worked out a way to make those dimples in the gib strip, and we'll carry on with the rest of the construction. As always, if you have been, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye now.